Welcome to Biography Central. You are listening to Life of Sri Ramakrishna, a complete biography. Chapter 19, Nirvikalpa Samadhi, beyond the realm of thought, transcending the domain of duality, leaving Maya with all her changes and modifications far behind, towering above the delusions of creation, preservation and destruction, and sweeping away with an avalanche of ineffable bliss, all relative ideas of pain and pleasure, weal and woe, good and evil, shines the glory of the eternal Brahman, the existence, knowledge, bliss absolute, Satchitananda. In the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, knowledge, knower, and known, all dissolve in the menstruum of one eternal consciousness. Birth, growth, and death vanish in that infinite existence, and love, lover, and beloved merge in that unbounded ocean of supreme felicity, quelling all doubts and misgivings, stopping the oscillations of mind, exhausting the momentum of past action, breaking down the ridgepoles of that tabernacle in which the soul has made its abode for untold ages, stilling the body, calming the mind, and drowning the ego, comes the sweet joy of Brahman in that superconscious state. Space disappears into nothingness. Time is swallowed up in eternity. Causation becomes a dream of the past, and a tremendous effulgence annihilates the oppressive darkness of sense and thought. The world with its myriad heavenly bodies melts away. Even thought is hushed into silence, and only existence is. Who can say what the soul feels in its communion with the self? He only knows that state who has experienced it. It is all stillness indefinable. The soul, after a final struggle, leaps over the last barrier of relative existence, shatters its prison of matter, and merges in the infinite glory of Brahman. The Nirvikalpa Samadhi is the highest flight of Advaita philosophy. Truth is there revealed in its perfection and glory. The sadhaka feels it as a tangible thing. His illumination is steady, his bliss constant, and the oblivion of the phenomenal universe is complete. Even when he descends from this dizzy height, he is devoid of the ideas of I and mine, and looks upon the body as a mere shadow, an outer sheath encasing the soul. He does not dwell on the past, takes no thought for the future, and looks with indifference upon the present. Surveying everything with an eye of equality in this world of infinite variety, the liberated man is no longer touched by phenomena, nor by their reactions of pleasure and pain. He is the same if he, that is to say his body, is worshipped by the good or tormented by the wicked, for he realizes that it is the one Brahman which is manifesting throughout the whole of nature. This is the crowning glory of man's spiritual exercises, the last word in his evolution. There is no more birth, no more death, nor any further identification with the changes of the body. He leaves behind all the modifications of relativity, like a cast-off garment. He realizes his identity with the eternal Brahman, the one without a second, and knows that the former idea of himself as mortal, dependent on phenomena, was due to illusion and ignorance. It is authoritatively stated that for the ordinary sadhaka, there is no return from this exalted state to the normal plane, that after he has enjoyed this supreme bliss for a few days, the dissociation of his soul from the mind and body becomes complete, and the body dies. Only those who are born with some special mission in the world can return in an inscrutable way from this samadhi. They live and move in the world for the welfare of mankind. They are invested with supreme spiritual power, and a divine splendor shines through them. They can transmit holiness and purity to others by a touch, a word, a look, or even a thought. This is the reason why such men are able to revolutionize the world. Samadhi, broadly speaking, is a state of superconsciousness. It is leaving behind the world as perceived by the senses and soaring into a supersensory state which may range from the vision of subtle elements to the merging of the mind in the absolute. Sri Ramakrishna's Samadhi covered a wide range of experience, from his perception of various visions to the annihilation of his mind in the infinite consciousness of Brahman. It had also many forms. Sometimes he willed himself into them, At other times, the strong current of his spiritual nature swept him into them in spite of himself. Thus, he entered into a world of power, or a world of beauty, or a world of spiritual grandeur, according to the nature of the suggestion from the external world. He would commune with invisible beings, forms of the divinity or divine incarnations of the past. Such visions, however, belong to the domain of personality, which is not the last word in spiritual experiences. So long as a sadhaka is satisfied with this kind of samadhi, his attainments cannot be said to be complete. He has not yet reached the unfathomable depths of the ocean, though undoubtedly he has gone far beneath the surface, encountering the forms of life abounding there. But he has not yet ransacked the priceless treasures of the deep, which reveal themselves only to those who have the courage to dive on till they have touched bottom. So, we find Sri Ramakrishna taking up another course of sadhana, altogether different from his previous ones, and his success in this was as remarkable as the practice was difficult. Before commencing this new chapter of his life, it is necessary to take a survey of his mind at this time to see how far it answered to the requirements. The scriptures lay down 4 great qualifications for aspirants in this line. First of all is the discrimination between the real and the unreal, a firm conviction that Brahman alone is real and all else is unreal. Next is renunciation of the fruits of one's actions here and hereafter. Then comes the following group of attributes: control of the mind and senses, withdrawal from outside objects, forbearance, faith in the teacher and scriptures, and concentration. Lastly comes the yearning for freedom. Only he who is grounded in all these virtues is recommended to approach a teacher who knows the spirit of the Vedas, who is sinless and free from desire, who is compassionate, and above all, a knower of Brahman, and therefore qualified to set him on the path of higher realization. Without going into unnecessary detail, we presume that the reader has seen that Sri Ramakrishna, with his whole mind resting on God, and totally regardless of the body, was the very embodiment of discrimination. His renunciation was on par with his discrimination, for the alpha and omega of his life was God. His one prayer to the Divine Mother, uttered with the utmost sincerity of heart, was to be freed from everything that the world holds dear, in order to attain pure devotion. The following incident, narrated by Swami Premananda, a disciple of the Master, though happening much later, will illustrate Sri Ramakrishna's habitual spirit of renunciation. One night, as he was sleeping in the same room with the Master at Dakshineshwar, he was awakened to find the Master pacing the floor in a strangely excited state, with his cloth hanging under one arm. At every turn he spat on the floor, remarking in a tone of utter disgust, "Fie, I spit on it. I don't want it, take it back, mother. Don't tempt me with this trifle." All the time, he was unconscious of the outside world, and his countenance glowed with emotion. The young disciple was at a loss to know what the trouble was. After some time, Sri Ramakrishna regained the normal state, and to the disciple's inquiry replied, "At dead of night, I suddenly awoke from sleep to find the Divine Mother approaching me with a basket in her hand. She held it out to me and asked me to accept the contents, which were mine. At a glance, I found that the mother had brought me worldly honors. They looked so hideous to me that I turned my face in disgust and prayed to her to take back her allurements. Thereupon she disappeared with a smile." We have also ample proof of Sri Ramakrishna's self-control and concentration, his faith as well as his yearning for the Lord. In fact, all these were as the very breath of his nostrils, requiring no effort whatsoever. Not only did he manifest all these rare traits of character, but their intensity was most striking. The field was thus ready plowed and waited only for the sowing of the seed. At this moment, Sri Ramakrishna met the spiritual guide who initiated him into the profundities of the Advaita Vedanta. There came to the garden of Dakshineshwar a wonderful man, wonderful both for his great Advaita realization and for the practical demonstration of it in his life. Todapuri, for that was the name of the august newcomer, was one of those itinerant monks who, realizing Brahman as the only reality and looking upon the world as a phantom, spend their life under the canopy of heaven, alike in storm and sunshine, maintaining themselves on the slender pittances got from begging. It is said that Totapuri practiced sadhana in a secluded forest on the banks of the sacred Narmada and attained to the Nirvikalpa Samadhi after rigid discipline extending over 40 years. A liberated soul, indifferent to the joys and sorrows of the world, he intended to spend the remaining years of his life in making pilgrimages to the holy places. Like a lion, he roamed over the country. He had been to Puri and Gangasagar, and on the return journey along the course of the Ganges, halted at Dakshineshwar. He did not see that the inscrutable divine will, for the fulfillment of a great mission, guided his footsteps to this new place. Totapuri stopped at the main portico in front of the Kali temple, where Sri Ramakrishna, dressed in an ordinary dhoti, was seated in an abstracted mood. But his bright face at once arrested the attention of Totapuri, who detected great parts in this plain-looking young man. The longer he looked at Sri Ramakrishna, the more he was impressed, and at last said, "You seem to be an advanced seeker after truth. Would you like to learn Vedanta?" "I don't know. It all depends on my mother. I can agree to your proposal only if she approves of it," was the quiet answer. "All right," said the monk. "Go and ask your mother. I shall not be here long." Sri Ramakrishna silently left and went to the Kali temple. He spoke of the matter to the mother, and in a state of trance heard her command, "Yes, my boy, go and learn of him. It is for this purpose that he has come here." In a state of semi-consciousness and with a beaming countenance, Sri Ramakrishna returned and said to Totapuri that he had his mother's permission. Totapuri, though struck by the simplicity of the young man, must have smiled at his apparent superstition in addressing the image in the temple as mother. A great Vedantin, he believed in the personal God only as the dispenser of fruits of action. Such a God was a mere logical postulate to him, and he did not believe in the efficacy of prayer or devotion to him on the part of an aspirant for self-realization. Maya, or Shakti, the kinetic state of Brahman, which Sri Ramakrishna looked upon as mother, was to this Vedantist monk nothing but an illusion, so there was absolutely no need for him to propitiate her to extricate himself from ignorance. He knew that man was bound by his own ignorance, and that man alone was able to shatter it to pieces through self-effort. But he said nothing to Sri Ramakrishna on the point, thinking that under his training the disciple would soon learn the truth and spontaneously brush aside all superstitions. Totapuri told Sri Ramakrishna that he must be initiated with proper ceremonies into the sacred order of sannyasa before commencing to study the truths of Vedanta or practicing the discipline prescribed in this course. He must give up the insignia of his present state of life, such as the sacred thread or the hair tuft, which marked him as a Brahmin and householder, and begin a new life. Sri Ramakrishna said that he had no objection provided he could do so in private. He made this reservation for the sake of his old mother, who had left Kamarpukur about a year before to spend the remaining years of her afflicted life in the sacred precincts of the Dakshineshwar temple, where Mather's hospitality provided her with a room in full view of the Ganges and all necessary comforts. It would be too much for her to see her son shave his head and take the monk's vow. Totapuri understood his difficulty and said, "All right, I shall initiate you privately at the proper time." The auspicious day arrived. Sri Ramakrishna was asked by his guru to perform the Shraddh ceremony, or the prescribed oblations to his departed forefathers, for a sannyasin is practically dead to the world and can no longer take part in such rites. Then he was asked to perform his own Shraddh, as he must give up the desire of going to other spheres to enjoy the fruits of his actions. He went through these exactly as he was told, and collecting the requisites for sannyasa in his meditation room at the punch of a tea, according to the directions of the guru, he fasted and joyfully awaited the final consecration. The night was almost spent. In the placid silence of the last half hour, the most auspicious time for this initiation, the teacher and the disciple entered the meditation room. The guru chanted the holy mantras, which the disciple repeated as he put oblations one after another into the sacred fire, renouncing, as he did so, all desire for enjoyment, here and hereafter, and giving assurance of safety, as part and parcel of his own being, to all creatures. After the burning of his hair tuft and sacred thread, he accepted from the Guru the emblems of a new life, the loincloth and the ochre robe. The day dawned. It was a glorious day for India and indeed for the world, filled with immense possibilities for the future. The ancient religion of the Vedanta found a new apostle, and the world saw the appearance of a new man filled with the all-embracing love of a Buddha and endowed with the keen intellect of Shankara. A new prophet was born who was to be a bridge between the two worlds, the East and the West, and reconcile the faiths of the past with the exigencies of the future. Prostrating himself before his guru, Sri Ramakrishna took his seat to receive his instructions. To make him feel constantly his identity with Brahman, Todapuri began to teach him the cardinal truths of the Advaita Vedanta. Brahman, he said, is the only reality, ever pure, ever illumined, ever free, beyond the limits of time, space, and causation. Though apparently divided by names and forms through the inscrutable agency of Maya, that enchantress which makes the impossible possible, Brahman is really one and undivided. When a seeker is merged in the beatitude of Samadhi, he does not perceive time and space or name and form, the products of Maya. Whatever is within the domain of Maya is unreal. Give it up. Pierce through the maze of name and form and rush out of it like a lion. Dive deep in the search for self and be firmly established in it through Samadhi. You will then find the world of name and form vanishing into nothing, and this puny ego merging in the cosmic consciousness. You will realize your identity with Brahman, the existence, knowledge, bliss absolute, Sat Chit Ananda. Quoting the scriptures, he said, that knowledge is shallow by which one sees or hears or knows another. What is shallow is worthless and can never give supreme felicity. But the knowledge in which one does not see, hear, or know another, which is beyond duality, is great and helps a man to attain the supreme bliss. How can the mind and senses grasp that which shines in the heart of all as the eternal subject? Arguing in this way and supporting his arguments by scriptural quotations, Todapuri tried that day to help Sri Ramakrishna to fix his mind firmly in the absolute. We describe it in Sri Ramakrishna's own words. After the initiation, the naked one, as Sri Ramakrishna called his guru out of respect for being a Nagasadu, who goes around naked, began to teach me the various conclusions of the Advaita Vedanta and asked me to withdraw the mind completely from all objects and dive into the Atman. But in spite of all my attempts, I could not cross the realm of name and form and bring my mind to the unconditioned state. I had no difficulty in withdrawing the mind from all other objects except one, the all too familiar form of the blissful mother, radiant, and of the essence of pure consciousness, which appeared before me as a living reality, preventing me from passing beyond the realm of name and form. Again and again, I tried to concentrate my mind upon the Advaita teachings, but every time the mother's form stood in my way. In despair, I said to the naked one, "It is hopeless. I cannot raise my mind to the unconditioned state and come face to face with the Atman." He grew excited and sharply said, "What? You can't do it, but you have to." He cast his eyes around, and finding a piece of glass, he took it up and pressing the point between my eyebrows said, "Concentrate the mind on this point." Then with a stern determination, I again sat to meditate. And as soon as the gracious form of the Divine Mother appeared before me, I used my discrimination as a sword and with it severed it in two. There remained no more obstruction to my mind, which at once soared beyond the relative plane, and I lost myself in Samadhi. Sri Ramakrishna passed into the ineffable glory of the Nirvikalpa Samadhi. In that rapturous ecstasy, the senses and mind stopped their functions. The body became motionless as a corpse. The universe rolled away from his vision. Even space itself melted away. Everything was reduced to ideas, which floated like shadows in the dim background of the mind. Only the faint consciousness of I repeated itself in dull monotony. Presently that too stopped, and what remained was existence alone. The soul lost itself in the self, and all idea of duality, of subject and object, was effaced. Limitations were gone, and finite space was one with infinite space. Beyond speech, beyond experience, and beyond thought, Sri Ramakrishna had realized the Brahman, had become the Brahman. Totapuri sat for a long time, silently watching his disciple. Finding him perfectly motionless, he stole out of a room and locked the door, lest anybody should intrude without his knowledge. Then he awaited the call from Sri Ramakrishna to open the door. The day passed on. The night came. Another day, and still another. 3 days passed, and there was no call. Totapuri was astonished and went to see what was wrong. He opened the door and entered the room. There sat Sri Ramakrishna in the very same position in which he had left him. There was no manifestation of life in the body, but the countenance was calm, serene, and radiant. He saw that the disciple was still dead to the objective world, his mind absorbed in the self, without a flicker, absolutely steady. With breathless wonder, Totapuri stood before this august spectacle. "Is it really true?" he said to himself. "Is it possible that this man has attained in the course of a single day that which it took me 40 years of strenuous practice to achieve?" Impelled by doubt, he again made a searching examination. With the utmost care, he determined if the heart was beating or if there was the slightest trace of respiration. Again and again, he touched the disciple's corpse-like body. There was no sign either of life or of consciousness. In joyous bewilderment, he cried out, "Great God! It is nothing short of a miracle." It was undoubtedly a case of the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, the culmination of the Advaita practice. Totapuri immediately took steps to bring the mind of Sri Ramakrishna down to the world of phenomena. The little room in the Panchavuti rang with the holy mantra, Hari Om, uttered in a solemn voice. Little by little, Sri Ramakrishna came to the consciousness of the outside universe. He opened his eyes and saw his guru looking at him with tenderness and admiration. The guru answered the worthy disciple's prostration by locking him in a warm embrace. Totapuri usually did not stay at any one place for more than 3 days, but he wished to establish this wonderful new disciple firmly on the lofty plane of Advaita, and he remained 11 months in the garden of Dakshineshwar. We shall now describe some interesting events of this period which will throw a flood of light on the unique relation of Sri Ramakrishna with this great monk and the Bhairavi Brahmani, and show how in certain respects the disciple in his turn became the teacher of his gurus. I hope you like this chapter. We need volunteers and sponsors to create content with even better quality and with more variety. If you wish to join this initiative as a volunteer or sponsor, please click the links given in description below. To help us reach more viewers, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Biography Central. Thank you for your time. It means a lot. Namaste.